Hey everyone, welcome to this tutorial, and it's not necessarily a Learning Fusion tutorial, but one of our last Learning Fusion episodes was talking about cryptomats and how difficult it is to get good cryptomats using our cycles renderer within Blender. And also I mentioned within Fusion, when we're using that cryptomat node, it is only available for the studio version. And I mentioned as long as you're doing your render layers within Blender correctly, you don't even need the cryptomat node because you're automatically going to have those mats within each render. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We've got this little scene, and I did upload this for everybody to use, not just members, just because something like this is going to take so long, and I really want you to follow along so you learn how to do this, because it's not just for cryptomat purposes. This is technically how you should be rendering everything out of Blender so you can do proper compositing within Fusion, which is going to be one of our next Learning Fusion episodes. So let's walk through this. So we've got this little scene here. We've just got this actress walking and some background stuff and stuff going on. So right now, if we render it, all of it's just going to render as one image. Well, we don't want that. We want all our elements to render independently. So first of all, before we start doing that, we'll just walk through the settings I have. And right here, I've just got it set up at 3840 by 2160. We're at 30 frames per second. We're going to be rendering frame 1 through frame 20. And I already rendered these out, so I'm not actually going to be rendering these out today, because it is going to take you maybe 4 to 10 hours, depending on your computer, to actually render this 120 frames at these settings anyway. You can always drop them and make it faster. Now, under here, I'm using cycles, GPU, and I've just got my max sample set to 1024. We're using our little noise threshold here for a render. Our max renderer samples set at 2160. You can go lower if you want, because it really doesn't need to be super high quality. And I got denoise on. And one thing we want to make sure is under our film, you have your transparent marked. Additionally, under our color management, I have ACES installed, so I'll be rendering all this under ACES. And if you don't know how to do that, there's plenty of tutorials out there on how to load ACES on Blender. And in our files right here, I'm just using our combined. I have other stuff marked, but mainly I just want my combined. And if you want other channels or other data included, you just select these, and I'll show you how you can add them. And again, this time we are not going to be doing cryptomats. So we're going to leave those blank because you're not going to need them. So for this to work, basically what we need to do is we need to create multiple render layers or view layers. So up top here in Blender, you notice we have this little view layer, and we can add or remove view layers. Now each of these view layers or render layers will render independently once we set it up correctly within our Compositing tab. So what we want to do is we want to make sure we separate our image accordingly. So first thing we want to do is we want to make sure we can see this holdout in this indirect only. So if we go up here to our little filter area right here, just make sure we have this little holdout in this indirect only selected, so we can see that in our selection over here. And what I want to do is I want to go through and turn things on and off as needed. And for this to work well, you need to make sure everything is sitting in collections. So I have our little back wall here in the collection. I have our columns in a collection. I've got our ceiling in a separate collection. I've got our floor in a separate collection. Our little window walls, which I'm not going to render because I just have these walls over here, and all they're for is to cast these shadows on the walls, and they're actually not going to be able to be viewable within our renders. But then we've got our little wall sconces back there, and then we've got our little actor there. So let's go ahead and make this first layer our ceiling. So what I want to do is go to my back wall, and I could either select this indirect only, and if I hold my shift, it's going to do everything within that little folder. If I have multiple things, it's going to select them as holdouts because, for example, if I go to our little actor here and I just select our little actor up here without holding the shift, it's not going to mark everything. But if I hold my shift key and I select indirect only on our actor, everything within that folder is going to be indirect only. So we've got our actor indirect only, and if you notice, if I zoom in here, you can see it's only showing her little light from her suit casting on that floor. So indirect only is going to be showing on this render layer. So our columns, we also don't want our columns to show. So I'm going to hold Shift and select indirect only. So now our columns aren't going to be visible. Now, when I build this, well, two reasons. We can use holdout. So when we build this, we really don't have to worry about our layering when it comes to layering them correctly within Fusion when we're doing our compositing. But also, if I'm doing holdouts, it's going to make our renders actually faster. So if I hold Shift on our little columns and select this holdout, you notice it just held out everything on those columns. So all these little bits are no longer going to have to render. So same thing with our floor. I can hold Shift, indirect only. Our windows and walls, I can do indirect only. And I can actually hold those out as well. So it's going to have less stuff to render. And our wall sconces, I can select indirect only as well. So now the only thing that's going to render within our little view layer here is our ceiling. So I can go up here, click on this, and we can rename it ceiling, C-E-I-L-I-N-G. So we know that's our ceiling layer. Now we want to create new render layers. So all I have to do is select this little add view layer and select copy settings. If I hit new, it's going to start like a new one. Copy settings is just going to copy all the settings we have. So it's going to be exactly like this one. So I'm just going to select copy settings. And this one's going to be our back wall. So I'm going to rename it to back wall. And we're going to do the same thing with our little back wall here. So instead of this being indirect only, I'm going to hold Shift space, unselect that, and I'm going to go to my ceiling this time, hold Shift and click that indirect only. I'm also going to select hold out so it holds out anything from that ceiling. So in this layer, the only thing that's going to show up is our back wall. And we're doing holdouts and everything else, so it makes our render faster because it no longer has to render all these bits. Because on our columns, if we didn't do that holdout, it wouldn't render our columns, but you notice it still has to render all this information. But if I do holdout, that's less info it's got to render, so we'll have a faster render. So our next one, let's go ahead and do our columns. So add, copy settings. This one is our columns, so rename to C-O-L-U-M-N-S, columns. And we're going to do the same thing on our brick wall. We're going to select holdout on our back wall and indirect only. And our columns, we're going to hold our Shift key and uncheck that and that. So now our columns are showing up, but it's being held out wherever the ceiling is showing in front of our columns. And we can also hold out our floor. That way, if anything is cutting out our little columns from our floor, it's not going to show up in our renders. And let's add a new one for our, wait, we did back wall columns. We did ceiling already for our floor. So new, copy settings. Let's name this floor. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to select hold out and indirect only while holding the Shift key to make sure we're holding out anything we don't. So let's go ahead and show our floor first. So select that so we can see our floor. We're going to go to our columns, select this hold out and indirect only. That way we're still getting our shadows from our columns. So there's our floor. Add a new one, copy settings. And this one is going to be our sconces, so S-C-O-N-C-E-S. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to select our floor, hold it out, indirect only, go to our wall sconces, turn those on, and so now we see our wall sconces. And then we need to create one more, copy settings. This one's going to be our actor. So for our actor, we can hold our Shift key, unselect this indirect only, that way our actor's showing up. And on our wall sconces, we can go ahead and select this indirect only and hold out. That way only our actor there is being rendered. So now if we go through, we've got all these renders. So if I go back to back wall, there's our back wall. If I go to ceiling, there's our ceiling. So now the next thing we have to do is set up our folders so we can render this and then go to our compositing area so we can composite it correctly so it renders out individual files. So for our first one, this is our ceiling. If we go to our little file folder here, I already did that, but what you want to do is you basically want to create folders for everything. So let's go ahead and open this up and let's create some folders in our little 3D folder here. So let's make a new folder. We can just name this Tut Renders. And in this folder, we want to create individual folders for each render layer. So if I select new folder, we had our ceiling, new folder, we had our back wall, new folder, we had our floor, new folder, we had our sconces, new folder, we had our actor, new folder, and we also had our columns. So we had these 6 layers that we're going to be rendering, so we've got 6 folders created already. So all I have to do is go into my output. If I select my folder, let's go to our little 3D view here, and Tut Renders, I would select my columns here, and I would select my ceiling because we're on our ceiling layer there, and I would name it accordingly, ceiling _ that way it numbers properly, and just hit accept. And we just want to make sure we're doing an open EXR multi-layer. If we bring it into Fusion, you want to make sure it's an open EXR multi-layer. Now to be able to set up the rest of these, we're going to have to go to our little compositing area here. So up top, if I select compositing, you notice we're going to have that first layer automatically showing up. And if you're not seeing this, you can select your use nodes and it'll pop up. And if you're not seeing anything still, you don't see any render layers, all you have to do is hit Shift A. You can go to your input, go to your scene, and you can select this render layers right here. And you've got a little render layers node. And then our composite, same thing. If you hit Shift space, or Shift A, sorry, Shift space is Fusion. Shift A, you go to your output and you can just select composite and throw a composite on there. But this first one is automatically going to render whatever we set up in this file folder here. And you notice it says ceiling because that's the render layer that is selected. So for our next one, right down here, we can select our next render layer. So we can select back wall. So now this render layer is only going to render our back wall layer. So to be able to file output that, we can hit Shift A, we can go to output, and we can select file output. And all we have to do is click that and connect our image to our image. If we go to our file output here, it's the same thing as our file output in our main little Blender area over here. All we have to do is select this path, and we'll go up, and this was our back wall. So we select that. We can rename this to back wall _ and hit accept. And if you want, for when we're in Fusion, to see these names a little better, instead of image, we can name this to back wall if we want. That way it'll show up as back wall, but it's still our little image. Now on these, we're not going to be able to input all these individual layers on our EXR. This one's going to automatically do it. This one we have to set up. So if we go to our file output and we still wanted that Z depth to show up, it's not going to show up in our EXR unless we add an input. So we can select add input. And on this one, we can go from depth to this one. And on this one, we can just name this to depth. So now on our open EXR, we're going to have another layer that says depth. Same with the rest of them. If we need our normals and our vectors, we just go here. We can just add another input and just input whatever we want. If we needed our emission, we can just input that into the little image area. And if you want to rename that, we can just emit. So now we know that's our emitter. And on our EXR, it's going to show up with those layer names. So if you want this done on every single file or every single input, you want every single one of them, I would suggest setting up one of them and then cut, copying, and paste. Because now if we select our little file in our renders, we can just hit Control-C, Control-V, copy those two. We can go down here and change from our back wall to our columns. So now we're going to be rendering our columns. If we go to our file output, we can select this, go up, select our columns, rename it columns underscore, except, and we can go here, we can even rename this to columns. So our little layers within our EXR will show up as those. Now, just so you know what's going to happen for our main image there, it's going to have our RGB and A. So you don't have to individually do an alpha channel if you don't want, because it's automatically going to show up if we only connect this one image input. So there's our columns, and we set it up correctly. We can hit Control-V, paste another one. And on this one, we're going to select our floor layer. We can go to our file output, change it to our floor folder. Let's rename it to floor underscore, except, and we can even rename this one to floor underscore. And we're going to hit Control-V, Control-V, paste another set. And on this one, instead of our floor, we're going to select our sconces. And the same thing on our file output. We're going to select our sconces folder. We'll rename it sconces underscore, except, and rename this sconces underscore. And one more, I believe. How many we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, we need one more for our actor. So Control-V, select our actor there. Go up here, change our file folder to our actor. Actor underscore, except, it will change this to actor. So there we go. We've got all of our individual files set up. So when we hit our render animation, what it's going to go through is going to go through each layer and it's going to render it. Once it's done rendering all of our layers, it's going to go back and then it's going to denoise each individual layer. And then once that's done, it's going to save it to your folders. So your folders will end up looking like, let me see, tutorials, Learning Fusion, Blender View layers. Right here are renders. I've got all of our individual folders. So if I go, you can see we have all those actor EXRs. We have all the back wall and so on. So it's going to render every single one of them as an individual open EXR file. So once that's done and all your render is done, whether it's 4 to 10 hours later, I believe mine took like 3 hours and 45 minutes to render 120 frames, which is a long time. That's why I miss Redshift, because Redshift was much faster. Cycles is a little slower, but it is what it is. And if you want it faster, you can even change these max samples down, because I really didn't need it this high. I just forgot to change it. So you could go much lower to make your little renders faster, or change your denoising threshold and it'll be faster. Anyway, once that's all done, you go to your Fusion. Once we're in Fusion, all you have to do is use loader nodes to load all those in. So shift space, loader. We're going to add a loader node, and we're going to navigate to our little render folders here so we can bring them all in. So ceiling, just double click. There we go. It loaded our ceiling. Now this scene was actually pretty dark. So the scene itself is pretty dark. So looking at the color in Fusion is close to the same, because like I said, this is ACES and in here is showing up with our ACES color. If you really wanted to, if you want to be able to see it better but not change your color, you can hit Shift Space at a gamut node, and you can do one of two things. You can select ACES as your, or ACES CG, and you can change your output to sRGB. So it just changes your gamma. It brings it down so it's a little brighter so you can see what's going on, but no, this is changing your color because this is not what our render is supposed to look like. If you want it a little closer and you want to be working on DaVinci wide gamut, we could just simply change this to our DaVinci wide gamut, which is what our project's set at. And if you notice, it's really not much difference, but it is going to change your coloring a little bit. So let me disconnect that and I'll show you once we get something with color, but let's bring the rest of these layers in. Now, before I move on, if we go up here and we look at our little ceiling area, and if I look at my alpha, remember I said it's automatically going to bring your alphas in, and this is what I mean. So now if we look, our alphas are there correctly. We don't even need cryptomats. So we can just use the alpha channel that was on each individual render as our mats. And again, just to show you, if we go to our little file format here and we look at all of our channels, you notice we have ceiling combined R, ceiling combined G, ceiling combined B, and ceiling combined A. And if you remember, we didn't include that alpha channel, but it automatically does. Now our ceiling was our first one that we rendered with all those channels showing up. So if we click on our Z, we can go look for our Z depth, vector, it's in here somewhere, I promise you. Depth Z, there we go, ceiling depth Z. So we can go through and assign each channel independently. But I'll get into this when we go over our Learning Fusion episode talking about all these different channels. So it's a bit much. I'm not going to get into it. But if we look at our other ones, so Shift Space, Loader, let's go ahead and add our columns in here. If we look at our columns and we go to our format and go to our channels, if you notice, we didn't connect anything, so all of that stuff is not showing up. The only thing that's showing up is our image A, B, G, and R. So let's finish building this out. So let's add another loader. Let's grab our back wall. Shift Space, Loader. Let's grab our floor. Whoops, our floor. There we go. Shift Space, Loader. Let's grab our sconces. Shift Space, Loader. And then let's grab our little actor there. So we've got all of our layers. We've got our ceiling, our columns, our back wall, and this is a good example right here. So if you look, this is our ACES color space being transformed within our little display. But if I bring in this gamut node and we're transforming it to DaVinci wide gamut, I plug it in and I look at this, you notice we just had a little color shift in there. And it's not horrible, but if I look at this, that was the original ACES, and that's the DaVinci wide gamut. And if you notice, it's just because our colors are shifted a little bit from our DaVinci wide gamut to our ACES. But if I go to sRGB, so we can see it a little better, it's going to make it super bright, and our color is going to be way, way off, but we're going to be able to see what's going on. But I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those because I'm just not going to add a gamut node. I'm just going to stay in ACES color space here. So to be able to put all these together real quick, and again, this isn't a compositing. We'll go over all this stuff when we go over a compositing Learning Fusion episode, but we could technically just grab a multi-merge if we wanted to, and we could start merging stuff together. So if I wanted to bring this back wall into our background, let's look at what's going on with our multi-merge. I can start building this out. So I can add our ceiling, I can bring in our columns, our floor, bring in our sconces and not in our floor area, and then bring in our little actor there. So there we go. And this is going to be extremely slow on playback, but now we can play it. There we go. And you can see we've got some ordering issues here. So our sconces should technically be behind. So you can always just go to your little multi-track here and we can find our little sconces. Where are our sconces? Where are our sconces? Sconces. And we can just drag those down to the bottom there so it's out of the way and reorder everything so they're correct. But one thing you'll notice is because we did holdouts, if we zoom in here, you can see we got issues going on. So our holdouts in Blender cycles renders are going to add these weird little borders to them, which isn't good. But there's ways in the compositing world to be able to fix that, and ways in Blender when we export stuff to do it correctly. But we'll cover that stuff when we go over compositing. But that is creating render layers within Blender and bringing them into Fusion real quick. So I will see you in the next episode of Learning Fusion when we start talking about compositing. So see you later.